she walked away with nothing. No house, no money, no support. Just silence and a broken heart. Everyone thought her story had ended there. That she would disappear, forgotten like so many others. But they were wrong. Because years later, she came back. Not to beg. Not to explain. But to reveal a truth no one saw coming. And when they discovered who she really was, everything changed. Stay till the end, because sometimes, losing everything is the beginning of something greater. The courtroom felt colder than she expected, even though the sun outside was bright. Aisha sat quietly, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes fixed on nothing in particular. Around her, voices moved, papers shuffled, decisions were made. But for her, everything had already ended long before this moment. The divorce wasn't sudden. It had been building for years, hidden beneath forced smiles and silent arguments that never truly resolved. Her husband, once kind and supportive, had changed slowly, becoming distant, impatient, and eventually someone she no longer recognized. The final decision came not with anger, but with exhaustion. He wanted out, and she didn't have the strength to fight anymore. When the judge announced the settlement, it was simple and final. He kept the house. The savings. The life they had built together. And she, left with almost nothing. There were no dramatic scenes, no shouting, no tears in front of others. Aisha stood up quietly, nodded once, and walked out. But inside, something broke. Outside the courtroom, the world moved on as if nothing had happened. Cars passed, people talked, life continued. But for Aisha, everything had changed. She had no home to return to, no plan, no clear path forward. The only thing she carried was a small bag and the weight of everything she had lost. The first few months were the hardest. She stayed in a small rented room, working whatever jobs she could find just to survive. Some days she skipped meals, some nights she cried herself to sleep, not just because of the pain, but because of the uncertainty. She questioned everything, her choices, her past, her future. But slowly, something inside her began to shift. Instead of asking why this happened, she started asking what she could do next. She began learning new skills, taking small online courses, working longer hours, and pushing herself beyond what she thought she could handle. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't fast, but it was progress. What no one around her knew was that Aisha wasn't just rebuilding her life, she was rediscovering herself. The strength she never had the chance to use before, the independence she had never been forced to develop, the determination she didn't know existed within her, all of it began to grow. Years passed, and the woman who once left with nothing slowly became someone entirely different. Not louder, not harder, but stronger. And one day, everything she had worked for began to come together in a way no one could have predicted. The city buzzed with excitement as news spread about a new investor entering the business world. No one knew much about her, only that she had quietly acquired multiple properties, invested in struggling businesses, and built a reputation for transforming failure into success. She stayed out of the spotlight, rarely appearing in public, letting her work speak for itself. People speculated about her identity, her background, her intentions, but no one had the full story. Until one day, she walked into a building that felt very familiar. It was the same office where her ex-husband now worked, managing a business that had begun to struggle over the years. He had everything once, stability, resources, confidence, but time had changed things. As Aisha stepped inside, she carried herself with quiet confidence. She wasn't there to prove anything. She wasn't there for revenge. She was there because her journey had brought her full circle. When she entered the meeting room, the room fell silent. Her ex-husband looked at her, confused at first, then shocked as recognition slowly set in. The woman standing in front of him was not the same person who had walked away years ago. She spoke calmly, explaining that she was the investor interested in acquiring and rebuilding the company. There was no anger in her voice, no bitterness in her expression. Just clarity. Strength. And control. The room remained silent as everyone processed the moment. The men who once believed she would never succeed now sat across from her, realizing how wrong he had been. But Aisha didn't focus on the past. She focused on the present. She outlined her plans, her vision, her strategy to rebuild what had been lost. And as she spoke, it became clear that she hadn't just survived, she had grown into something extraordinary. Over the following months, the company transformed under her leadership. What once struggled began to thrive again, creating opportunities not just for herself, but for many others. And while people admired her success, very few knew the full story behind it. The nights she cried, the days she doubted herself, the moments she almost gave up, those remained unseen. Because true strength isn't always visible. Sometimes, it's built quietly, piece by piece, until one day it becomes undeniable. Aisha never sought validation from those who doubted her. She didn't need it anymore. She had found something far more valuable, belief in herself. And as she stood at the top of everything she had built, she understood something important. Losing everything didn't destroy her. It gave her the chance to become who she was always meant to be. Because sometimes, the end of one life is the beginning of another. And sometimes, the person who walks away with nothing returns with everything.